Hello and welcome to my video on bearings. So this video is going to go through bearings, some of the basic ideas, particularly looking at being able to draw accurate diagrams that use bearings and that will use that terminology, but also to solve angle problems that involve bearings. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of these ideas in this video. So the first thing really is, what is a bearing? Because often pupils will not understand what a bearing is or often forget. But the basics are this, that a bearing is an angle. They are angles really. However, they do follow particular rules. They're not just any angle. They don't just work in the way that you might use angles normally. There are particular rules, and there's three main ones that I particularly would go through. Firstly, that a bearing must contain 3 digits. They have to have 3 digits. So if you've got an angle which is less than 3 digits, or say less than 100 degrees, you're going to have to stick extra digits at the start, and they will just be zeros in order to make sure there are 3 digits. That's one rule for them. The second one is that bearings are measured in a clockwise direction. Quite often I've seen pupils get very tempted to go anti-clockwise, mainly because it's shorter or nearer, but they're always in a clockwise direction. And then this follows into the third rule, which is that bearings are measured from the north. Bearings have always been used in the situations of, say, planes and ships which are traveling, and so typically from the old days they would have had compasses which would have pointed north, and they would have always had their bearing based on going from that direction and then in a clockwise manner. So these are the three key things about a bearing that you would need to know before you could start doing a problem. So now what I've got here is a GCSE exam style question where you have a little diagram to help you. You don't always get this, but this is about an accurate scale drawing and about an accurate way of using bearings. So they're showing you 2 ports, again referencing ships, could be planes and airports. It's the kind of usual situation they would give. And so you're asked to measure the bearing of Q from P in part A. That's what you're asked to do. Now this is the first point where a number of pupils go wrong, because they look at the order of the letters Q then P and they think, oh right, so you start at Q and you look at the angle to P, and then often that would be the first point where they've gone wrong. Now if you think about if you were to ask someone directions to go from one place to another, let's say I asked for directions to London from Manchester. Well, where am I starting? Well, I'm starting from Manchester. Even though I said Manchester last, it's actually the place I'm starting from. I want to get to London from Manchester. So in this case, the bearing of Q from P means we're actually starting at point P. That's where we're going to begin. And we want to get the bearing to get to Q. Now, because of the way bearings work and following the rules, you have to measure clockwise from the north. So that means we want this angle here. We started north, went clockwise until we're facing where Q is, and then we'd measure that angle. Now I've not measured it accurately. I'm just saying that it's going to be an acute angle looking at the diagram. So I've said it's about 40 degrees, but as a bearing we need 040 degrees. And that would get us our 1 mark. And it would be a common mistake to miss out that first 0 and just put 40 degrees and lose out for something as simple as that. The next part says a rock R is on a bearing of 150 degrees from Q. On the map, R is 6 centimeters from Q. So at this point, you're going to want to say, well, okay, I know where R is from Q. So I'm going to start at Q now. I'd measure an angle of 150 degrees, again going clockwise from a north. That's in my diagram, it's just roughly drawn. And then I'd measure out a line which is going to be 6 centimeters long from that point. Now again, it does say in the question, mark the position of R with a cross and label it R. It may sound silly to do this, but just ensure you're doing everything the question has asked of you. Then that way you can be sure you're not losing any marks for anything silly or anything that might be considered ridiculous at the end. Now that's an accurate drawings question. There's other types that you can get, but that's the basic idea. The next question I'm going to do, I really like this question because it is so often done wrong, and I want to make sure that you have an idea of how you could go about solving it. So in this question, we don't have a diagram. We're just told that the bearing of a ship from a lighthouse is 50 degrees, 050 as a bearing. Then it says work out the bearing of the lighthouse from the ship. And so what many notice is that you're going back, you're going the other way. So what they do is these are common mistakes, is they'll put 130 degrees or 310 degrees without even thinking. Right away, just stick that down. And the reason they do this is because they think of either angles making 180 or 360 and sticking to that as their solution. Now this is where you would need to do a sketch and do a bit more work in order to get the correct answer. Because I'd be willing to bet that most of you might be thinking that one of those is the right answer right now. So here we go, let's draw a diagram. So we know this, the bearing of a ship from a lighthouse is 050 degrees. So I'm going to start with the lighthouse because I know the bearing of a ship from the lighthouse. So I start at the lighthouse. I then draw a north line and then I would roughly do an angle that's 50 degrees. Remember, it's only a sketch. We don't even know how far away the ship is from the lighthouse, so it's not a scale drawing. You just draw it out so it looks roughly like it should. And then this should be where our ship is. And at this point, I'm now going to draw another north line at the ship. So I now want to have the bearing which goes from the ship back to the lighthouse. So if I'm at the ship, then my bearing, the angle I need is this one going all the way around here. Because I'd have to go clockwise from the north if I follow my bearings rules. So now I need to figure out that angle. Now, to do that, what I would do, and it's not a case that you have to do this, I've seen other ways, is I'd extend the north lines below. And what I know is my north lines are parallel. They'll always be parallel. And so once I get to this point, I would then start using angle facts to solve my bearing problem. Now, this angle here is 50 degrees because it's an alternate angle. And if you don't know alternate angles, you'll have to go and look that bit up and how that works. But that's what I would do. And then the other angle has to be 180 because it makes a straight line. This means that my actual answer and my bearing is 230 degrees. And that would be the answer to the question. So it takes a little bit more work, but it's always a good idea to do a sketch and then try and find your missing angles. Hopefully you found this video useful, just going through some of the ideas of bearings, because I know it's an area that a lot of people do forget or struggle with. But do make a sketch if you've got this kind of problem. It's very helpful, and if it helps you, extend those north lines so you can use some angle facts to solve it at the end. Okay, leave any comments that you want to below, and thank you for watching.